Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Big 12 bell tolls for thee.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be with you, and here we sit, Big 12 Eve. A happy one to those who celebrate. Business is now at our door for real as Grant McCaslin and the Red Raider men's basketball team are headed to Austin, Texas to take on the Longhorns. Whether you're tuned up or not, as we've been talking about over the last few weeks, here we go. And there's no real slow way to ease into this warm bath, I suppose, that is called Big 12 basketball. So why not just get it started in Austin, Texas, with one of the more formidable opponents in the league. Will only be the first of many, but we're about to find out, aren't we, what Texas Tech actually is going to be. And just would remind ourselves the first round of a long fight. So you got to keep that in mind as well. But a big one coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, the warm bath has never been the problem. It's the ice bath. It's tough to jump into that bad boy. It's good for you if you need it. If you're you're trying to recover some sore muscles and things like that. I was in the pool. This is right now. These are two. I guess the best way to say it. And again, it's hard to start talking in these terms this early because again we got an eternity left to play and you can't even see the end off into the distance, but these are two bubble teams right now in terms of the NCAA tournament. These are two borderline NCAA/NIT teams that I think are still, the jury's still out and you're not real sure if either team is any good or maybe they're just because you're not sure about them. That's what means the bubble. But the resumes also, I think, would suggest to you that they're fringe NCAA tournament teams as well. This is going to be an interesting matchup of four smaller guards, very talented guards, guards that can score, that can facilitate, that can – and it'll be interesting to see who wins the matchup because for Texas, it's Tyrese Hunter and Max Asmus, the Iowa State transfer and the Oral Roberts transfer, and those guys are averaging about 30 points a game, give or take, total combined, and I think maybe even plus on that side of it, but. And then with the Red Raiders, it's obviously Joe and Pop, and you know what they can do, and that's part of the recipe for you winning is like your two guards have to play well. I mean, or otherwise, I just don't. It's hard to envision a recipe in which you can maneuver through your way to a victory, especially on the road. And Texas is, I think, like something like 26 or 29-1, somewhere in that range in this new building. They've only dropped one game there. So again, life on the road is going to be tough, and it gets dropped in your lap right out of the gate. So it's going to be a tough one.
I know we've touched on, a specific statistical category like turnovers where the Red Raiders for a period of time were better on the road than they were at home. But is there any way, I know it's all hard to gauge, but how would you assess what Texas Tech has been as a road team? I know you've been in, some neutral sites. You had the trip to Hinkle to take on Butler, but, the road can be galvanizing for a team sometimes if you handle it the right way. But how do you view them as a team away from home?
Well, it's the only true road game where you had people yelling at you was in Indianapolis. Everything else has been neutral court, I guess. It's the only true road game that you've had, and I think it's good for you that you have had it under your belt. You kind of know what to expect. Grant's teams have been extremely good on the road in recent years. And that's one of the reasons why I think he's the head coach here, because of what his teams were able to do away from their own buildings, whether at Arkansas State or at North Texas or whatever. This is a different animal, obviously. He talks about keeping your huddle tighter, staying connected, and body language, just things like that, because there's the punch counter punch, man. And I don't know, I would assume tomorrow night, Saturday night, that you'll get a close to a capacity crowd. Football season's over in Austin. I don't know if anybody noticed. So there's not anybody that's left town for Houston on Monday night. They can stay home. Do they show up to this game Saturday night? And is the student crowd rowdy and all that? I don't know, but you'll have to deal with some of that. And if you remember last year, it was about the same time of year. It was in early to mid-January. And you went and played extremely well there. And in fact, I don't want to say you commanded the game or I'm not sure on the right way to phrase it, but you kind of controlled, maybe that's the best way to control that game for, man, what felt like 36, 37, 38 minutes, had a halftime lead. And then it was just, you just couldn't hold on in the last couple of minutes. And that's what's frustrating about the road is, and the home court advantage and the crowd gets to you. But you're going to need another fast start here. It'd be nice to control it for 40 minutes and get out of there with a win, because this is the kind of win, if you get it, it changes your outlook. It changes people's perspective of you. Texas is probably supposed to win this game. They're going to be a favorite. But if Texas Tech gets a result here, then I think people kind of maybe start to view you differently. And the most important player for you.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And football is close to wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So many ways to spice up the action with FanDuel's safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. Are you really even parlaying if you're not visiting FanDuel's Parlay Hub? I doubt it. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NFL.
And the most important player for you in this game, in my opinion, is Darion Williams. I think he's the key cog that he can kind of swing this thing one way or the other. If he facilitates and rebounds and can score a little bit, you can go win this. If he's not to put all the pressure on him, but if he's kind of a non-factor, if he's not able to really help you on the glass or give you something offensively, whether it's via the scoring or via the assist, I don't know if you have enough, firepower to win one like this, because Texas they've got some depth and they're still trying to put some of these pieces together.
Moody Center around 10,000, I see, is what Texas is averaging so far. So I don't know. You get a bigger crowd for JoJo Siwa or Texas basketball. I guess maybe we'll have an idea coming up. Well,
that was a hell of an example to use for a concert.
I'm just trying to think of what Austin's into. Figured it'd be something weird. One of these new kind of intimate settings of Big 12 basketball, right? You've been down here. We'll check out Baylor's later in the year, but they're going smaller these days.
Yeah, and I think I've said this before that people are on record as kind of suggesting this, but if Texas Tech could redo their situation, they do the same. You have a monster, beautiful arena, but it's hard to always fill it up. I mean, I don't know. You may just shrink it to 12,500 or 11,000 or whatever, but it creates more supply and demand. It creates more of an intimate feel, which is harder to play in at times, and all those things, because it's rare that building is full. Talking about, but I think Texas, because of the way I think it actually holds more for like a concert, but the way they seed it and structure it for basketball game, I think they limit it to 10,000, which has created some demand, and it's not hard to get it sold out, which is the point. They put the students right around you, which is the way it's supposed to be, and it's a difficult place to play. But again, I think you managed it well last year. Part of it was because the time of the year that you were there, because it was also on a Saturday night, and it was also in early January, I think, when students weren't there. So it's very, very similar from that standpoint.
I know we don't have a full head of steam as far as the momentum of the program or this team we're really, really excited about, but we've had some Red Raiders show up in Austin before. Are there any ticket tricks we need to be aware of, or you think there'll be some in red and black there tomorrow?
That has gone the way of the buffalo, man. You can't, at the Drum, that was the wildest thing I'd ever seen. That 1 year, 2 years ago, I guess it was, or 2 seasons ago. I mean, I pull, when we won that year was chaos. You were really, really good. And you had already kind of gotten them here. And so there was all this animosity and all this. I'm trying to remember. Maybe your game in Lubbock was before, or I can't remember in what order those were played.
I think it was before.
Yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, there were all these rumblings about the crowd, and I literally kept going into some of these games going, I don't know what to expect, not from the game, but from the crowd and the environment and the animosity. And you rolled up and I don't know, 2 or 3 hours before the game, and the student crowd for Texas was as big as anything I'd ever seen. I was shocked, actually. And then it was a bit of an illusion in that was all that showed up, because it's like the whole upper deck all the way around was Tech fans, and they had cracked the ticket code and all these things. So you kind of were your own worst enemy in some ways, because
we ruined it.
Yeah, that's right. Del Conte and whoever's Jeremiah Donati. Yeah, Jeremiah Donati at TCU. They kind of were like, nope, no more Tech fans. No. Fool me once kind of deal. But they the way they structured this one, and because of the intimate setting, it's really hard for an outsider to get a ticket. You have seat licenses, and they've promised students more tickets. And so, it's next to impossible to kind of get a bulk of your fan base into the Moody. Bless the mood. Bless the mood.
Bless the mood. Yeah. I think there was also a promise of a full-size closet in Del Conte's suite for a full supply of mom jeans at his disposal at all times, in case he needs a fresh pair at some point during the game. Chris, you mentioned Darian Williams, and I'm wondering if this might tie into something that I've been considering, given some of the ways that he's been used. But you see on the screen there, strength versus weakness, and correct me where I'm wrong on any of this about Texas Tech, but I do feel like, hey, in the front court, very thin, extremely thin. Like whatever Warren Washington weighs, that's how thick we are, and then nothing beyond. And I look at some of what Texas has got going on in their front court, and I don't know, as you already mentioned the guards, I don't know that Texas would view it as their strength or the best part of what they have going on. But as I'm looking at this matchup, I'm kind of wondering if that's where some leverage really is. For the Longhorns, especially if, and this is one thing I'm just really curious about getting into Big 12 play, Warren Washington's foul count every time out. Can he stay out of foul trouble? Can he stay on the floor? Just, again, because of how thin it gets. Now, again, Darian Williams has been a presence there in some ways as well, but with the loss of Devin Cambridge, got even thinner, even though he wasn't an incredibly big guy. He played a lot bigger than his measurables would suggest. But how do you see some of this front court action breaking down in this matchup?
Yeah, Texas has more size and depth than you do, and that's we're going to be able to say that about pretty much everybody that you play, which is why you're bringing this point up. I think Texas Tech as a team has excelled at playing without fouling or defending without fouling. I mean, some would argue their defense hasn't been good enough, and it's just like, hey, yeah, come on and score. We're not in the way. We're not going to hamper your ability to get into the paint. That part of that is a bit of a problem, but they have avoided fouling too much and putting people at the free throw line and things like that. I think Warren Washington has been pretty good there from that standpoint, and it'll be magnified now. This is where the minutes you can steal with like Robert Jennings on the floor are huge because he's going to be in some ways out talented and out experienced with ever his one-on-one matchup most of the time. And that's where he need to start to see some development and growth here. And, because the work ethic is there, the talent, the size, but it's just sometimes I think it gets to moving too fast for him. And he's got to be able to like with these offensive rebounds and things, you got to be able to score those. You got to be able to put them back and all those kinds of things. But yeah, that's where, Texas has got Dylan Mitchell. I think Dylan Dessou comes off the bench. He's been dinged up early on in the season. Brock Cunningham, he's still around, and he's kind of plays that small forward. But yeah, there'll be plenty of length and athleticism that you're gonna have to deal with. But that's why, like, the minutes that you get from Lamar Washington and Robert Jennings, are they quality minutes? Did they help you, or are they getting picked on? When they come into the game, is it like, hey, dumping into whoever Jennings is guarding, and let's go at the young fella. I mean, because this is what good coaches do. And obviously all these teams, and you've had a bit of time extra to prepare here, because I think both of these teams played on New Year's Day. So you've had some extra time, more time than normal to prepare. And so, knowing the scouting report, again, there's about to be some things that are taken away from you that you're like, well, man, I was wide open against A&M Commerce. What is the deal? Like, I mean, this play worked. Versus Omaha, and now not so much. So, Kerwin Walton will be another one. Like,
no.
you have to have it from Pop and Joe. Like, have to. Like, there's no plan B there. You have to have something from Warren Washington, but it's like and I say Darion Williams from the rebounding part, because that's why you're asking about size and all those things. But Kerwin Walton, he's still got to do what he's been doing, I think, for you to reach your ceiling here. And winning in Austin is certainly going to be tough.
Yeah, things are going to change. Kind of reminds me when somebody was standing on Uncle Jesse's sweet spot and he didn't know that was allowed. Totally changed the game plan. And it's very difficult not to segue immediately into an old faces conversation when you mentioned Brock Cunningham, but I'm going to hold off on that for just a moment because I got one more question. We're only halfway into this year with Coach McCaslin, give or take. What's his style, or your read on his style in embracing the emotion or keeping it at arm's length for a matchup like this? Because I don't really know of anything that's been comparable in the non-conference. Like you said, you expected a hostile environment or a big environment whenever you go to take on Butler, but is he the kind of guy that's playing that thing up? Hey, this is a big game. This is an in-state game, and there is going to be some amped up emotion involved, or is it just the next game on a schedule kind of approach? What do you think?
Well, that's the thing about when you hire coaches and you start talking about, all the things that they bring to the table. But I always come down to, like fit. Will it, I don't care what they are, what they're about, where they've been, but will it work here? And that's the beauty, I think, of like the Joeys and the Grants, is they have a lot of familiarity with this place. He knows darn well what this game like means to the fan base, to his wife, for example, who graduated from Texas Tech, soccer player and all those things. I mean, and so, yeah, you embrace that. I think he will. And I think he did. I think a good example of that is he kind of knew what a big deal the A&M exhibition was. He knew what a big deal was that getting A&M and a home and home, what that would mean to the fan base. This is no different. I mean, is he gonna shout it from the mountaintops and draw a line in the sand and kind of put war paint on and all that for this one? No, but yeah, he understands what it means. And it's this program's, it's TBD obviously, but it's theoretically potentially your last trip to Austin, and so there's something to that. You just have to be careful about playing things up too much, because you're going to get right on that plane and come home Saturday night, and you got the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and what I would tell you is kind of a must-win type of game on Tuesday night in Lubbock. That you just gotta
wait, Chris. It's game number 2. We're already.
you better get the ones that you can get, especially at home, because you don't get a second chance at it. And that's why we'll talk about that one as it gets closer, obviously. But yeah, I think Grant will embrace the the emotion and kind of the situation here with this one.
And that you touch on exactly why I ask about it, because you get so high up and then it doesn't go your way. How are you picking yourselves back up on the other side? But I'll defer to those who are compensated handsomely to lead those types of efforts.
It's like Mike Leach used to say, guys, this week we're playing the purple team. This week we're playing the blue and yellow team. It was like very dry, monotone. But
right.
that was the point. It was like you can't ride the wave. You got to keep it steady. Again, some games are different. We all get it. This one kind of is, but you don't have to say a whole lot either.
All right, before we get out of here, let's get to the aforementioned old faces. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you won't, because it's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats for any event. The fastest, easiest way to buy tickets, and not just fast, but it's also secure and simple to use when you download the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime by downloading the Gametime app, creating an account, and then use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Now, these old faces are in new places. These are former Red Raiders we wanted to touch on. There was some interesting news in the Big 12 Conference and an interesting appearance otherwise that has to do with the national championship game coming up just around the corner. But you may have seen former Red Raider Alan Bowman will be back for another year of college football. If you don't remember, he was here at Texas Tech with Arch Lamb, and at a time where you could bring a dairy cow to trade for your tuition. You just got to go over to the dairy barn and milk it, and then you get a couple of classes or credits or whatever. It's a long time ago. But now he has since been a Michigan Wolverine, has been an Oklahoma State Cowboy, and has led a team, or at least been a part of a team that was in a conference championship game, 10-win season. I am amazed that Alan Bowman is still a college football quarterback that we're talking about. I think I saw somebody say yesterday he's 4 years older than Zion, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. It may be just older, but Zion's like in his fourth year in the NBA. Whatever. You get the idea. It's a wild time in college football. I guess this was a foregone conclusion that he was going to get that added year of eligibility, right? So I don't know if it's some surprise, but still kind of a sight to behold. And as a former Red Raider, I know it's just always fun for us to see a guy go on and have great success elsewhere. Unfortunately, we've got some practice with these types of situations.
Yeah, when we were talking basketball, when you say old faces, new places, and all that, I thought we were going to talk about TJ Shannon and Kevin McCullough.
No kidding.
Who were both in the Player of the Year race and all that. Yeah, still, obviously, TJ's got some stuff going on off the court right now, unfortunately. But Alan Bowman. I think what you're seeing here, so we can explain, this is, Cole Spencer just benefited from a similar situation, which allowed him to play a seventh year for you. There's been some other players. What has happened in the NCAA, basically, with that whole court case, like A.J. McCarty being available just for the bowl game, and then it was Naquan Tomlin, who transferred at the time they did from Kansas State, shows up at Memphis for basketball. I'm trying to think of some other situations. But basically the NCAA is like, the court was like, hey, we're going to rule that for 2 weeks, everybody that's on their multiple year transfer has just got all this eligibility. And then they come back and go, I think they had a lawsuit threatened against them. And then they were like, you know what, guys, just take your time. Hey, do it all year. In fact, maybe let's make it permanently. We don't care. Please don't sue us. And that's kind of what's happening right now. They're just kind of, the waiver thing is fairly easy to get, I think, in some ways, just because they don't want to screw with it. They're done kind of policing it in some ways. So everything's a yes. So I think there was some thought, because if Oklahoma State doesn't get, because the NCAA doesn't owe you anything on the timing of the decision. I thought this may play out a bit longer. And I'm thinking Oklahoma State potentially is going to get hosed here. Oh, if Bowman comes back, they've got their guy and all that. But if it gets into mid-January, they had no time to like try to bring in somebody else or fix it. They're just kind of stuck as they waited. It was the timing that bit them. But yeah, Bowman is back. And look, Alan Bowman's not great in my opinion, but here's the thing. People may laugh at that because, I'd love a quarterback statistically that wasn't great that led me to a 10-win season and a trip to the Big 12 championship game. And maybe Ollie Gordon is the one that ultimately led them there, but beside the point. He quarterbacked the win over Kansas State, which nobody around, including Alan Bowman, mind you, nobody around here has done and feels like since the 1800s or since Arch Lamb was roaming campus, as you pointed out earlier. I think this cements, Oklahoma State is a Big 12 preseason favorite now. 10-win season. Mike Gundy is Old Faithful. They get the entire offensive line back. They get Ollie Gordon back, and they get their signal caller back. And I think most of those wideouts, including Brennan Presley, are back as well. But he's a 1-to-1 interception to touchdown ratio guy. That's just kind of who Alan Bowman is. He will throw it to you. He'll make some big time plays, and you kind of have to take the good with the bad. But that was big news for really the Big 12 and Oklahoma State when that comes out, because they will, in my opinion, be preseason favorite. I think.
We'll always have the horns down when we were leading 41-35 or something, and then we don't talk about what happened after that. Before we get out of here, how about another old name that I'm sure Red Raiders remembered whenever he showed up in a semifinal just the other day and is going to be back in purple for a national championship game. And, yeah, this guy kind of fits the bill of what you and I were ad nauseum saying we were without this year. And Jalen Polk, Washington Huskies 1,000-yard receiver, who was doing his thing against Texas the other night.
Painful.
Yes.
Texas Tech was mentioned in the Sugar Bowl broadcast multiple times. I thought it ironic that we're about to have this conversation because Greg McElroy was in the booth and was one of the announcers. There's some Texas Tech references there, as he was a one-time. I was at a restaurant in Southlake, Texas, when he tried to call Mike Leach at a big party and was going to call and commit, and Mike didn't answer the phone. They had planned it out. And he's like, well, I guess coach is busy right now, so we'll mingle about and and all that. And he had to call 20 minutes later. He's like, hello, and then he committed to him, and that's when McElroy and Potts were both on their way to Texas Tech, and then ended up Greg McElroy ended up switching to Alabama, which was a great career choice for him, and all the things that led to him. He played for a national championship and all those things. So, but yeah, you had Mahomes mentioned in that game for great reason. Stud, legend, and all these things. And then it was like, there's Jalen Polk, the Texas Tech transfer, and you're like, oh yeah, I know he is. This was during I think his first year was 2020. I want to say that was maybe the COVID season, I think. And he had he averaged 10 yards a catch for you. That we were barely getting to know him. It was just under 300 yards receiving, but kid's a freak, man. 17 yards a catch. He's over 1,000 yards. He's got 9 touchdowns. He is, he's playing next to what is arguably one of the best wide receivers, if not the best in college football. And I don't want to take anything away from Maserati Marv there at Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. But yeah, Jalen Polk is exactly what you hope that Josh Kelly can bring you, that Micah Hudson can bring you. This is what the mix this is the piece that has ailed you, that you've been missing, and it just kills you that you don't have something like this. But that kid catches everything. Michael Penix is a dude now, but these receivers, they catch 50-50 balls. They make the contested catches. They run away from people. They run through people. You just don't have that, and you haven't. And so that's why whenever this turnstile of exodus with your wideouts that ended up at UTSA and Vanderbilt and Boston College and Indiana and all these things, I just, because when that kid left, man, it stung. It really did. But I don't even know if you knew at the time anywhere close to what you really were losing. But, there was a relationship with somebody up on the Washington staff, and there was a teammate, and there was, I think NIL way before it was even kind of really getting going, factored into it. It was just all this stuff. And I kind of thought, yeah, I'm not going to hear from that kid again. Oh, no. Yeah, you're going to hear from him. You're going to hear from him on the biggest stage there is in the sport. I just choked myself up. I'm leaking a little liquid awesome, though. It's not tears.
What a fun trip down memory lane to wrap up the week. That's my bad. I should have told everybody to pour a stiff drink before we got into this final portion of the conversation, but pour one now. Anyway, Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Have a safe and fun trip. Hopefully some enjoyable basketball in Austin, and we'll get together on the other side.
Yeah, when we resume the show, we'll recap, obviously, the game in Austin. We will talk about maybe the defensive line movement. I think that the Big 12 schedule is getting closer to being released, maybe next week. So anyway, we'll recap it all right here on Locked On Texas Tech. Don't forget to subscribe. Appreciate everybody listening and watching. And Cowan, my man, he's money. Tune in just for the references, man, because I enjoy it thoroughly, and I never know what I'm going to get. JoJo Siwa, I was not prepared for that, but I got it here.
JoJo Siwa, Uncle Jesse. I was just trying to follow up on the Scooby-Doo, which is
mom jeans.
I think what people enjoyed most about yesterday's show. So it's a hard act to follow whenever Chris Level is in the other box, but I'm doing my best. All right, like you said, subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for joining us throughout the week, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.